So it's getting cold now outside. Thanks guys for coming to another video. Before we get started, please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell icon down below because that helps with my channel. Also, there's a like and dislike button down below. Click one if you like the video or you dislike it. Hopefully you like it. In a couple days, I'm traveling to Europe. I'm going to France, Italy, and the Netherlands. So I'm going to three countries, amazing countries. I wish I could go to more, but it's kind of, right now, there's a lot of restrictions. There's a lot of rules and you gotta do a lot of things. So I'm going to be talking about those specific things that you need to prepare to go to these countries. And then this will be probably a 3-4-parter because it's gonna be a long trip. So we're gonna have reviews on hotels and we're gonna also have some reviews on restaurants and airline. So it's going to be a fun trip. But before we can get all of that done, there are some things you have to do. So most airlines now have a travel restrictions webpage that you can go up and go to and look up the restrictions that are in place for you to go to that country. So let's say I'm going to France. I don't need to take a COVID test if I'm vaccinated. I just need my vaccination card. I need to fill out a questionnaire before I go onto the plane. And then I need a health pass to go into restaurants there. So there's a few things. So you don't need to do the health pass specifically, but if you want to do pretty much anything in the country, you kind of need it. So I'm going to be talking about those things in today's episode, and we are going to move on from today's episode to the reviews and all of that afterwards. But this is the tough part, and this is the stressful part, because if you're trying to travel right now, which most people recommend that you don't, we kind of planned this for a while, and the restrictions were kind of loosened when we planned it, and now they're stricter again. So it's become a little bit harder. So as of right now, the rules are a little bit different than maybe what you are going through at your point in time, or hopefully you're out of this time, you're just watching a really old video. But yeah, I'm going to be talking about all of those things that you need to get into these 3 specific countries. And hopefully you guys enjoy it. Hopefully you guys learn something, and yeah, let's get to it right now. So I said before that I use the Delta travel restrictions webpage. It's fairly easy to get to. Just go into Google and type Delta travel restrictions. It's like the first link. If your airline does have another webpage, you can use that. But I like Delta, so even when I don't take Delta, I'm using their travel restrictions page just to see what I need to do to get into these countries. It's fairly easy. Most of these countries that you're going to be going to or trying to go to are going to require vaccination, especially France. It's usually the most connected to, Okay, so now I'm back from that trip, and there's quite a lot of things I have to share with you guys, some reviews of hotels and other things. My seat, I had like business class going there and like Delta One coming back. So some cool stuff about that stuff going to be in another video some other time, multiple videos coming soon. But I'm going to more cover what I've been talking about in this video so far anyways, which is the travel restrictions, the rules, everything you need to know to be able to travel to Europe during this time. So that Delta restrictions website is very useful for people traveling between the US and Europe. But once you get to Europe, it's slightly different. So when I was here and I was going through the website, I was clicking my like the airport I'm leaving from. I would say that I'm leaving from Charles de Gaulle going to Milan or going to Florence. And even though I put that, it showed me the information, the same information I would get if I were to put LAX to Florence. So the same exact information is shared. But actually, if you already have arrived in France and you have the health pass, actually they don't even check the health pass at the airport, but if you've already arrived in France, in the EU, is it Schengen, in that area of the in Europe, in the EU, if you've arrived in the EU already, you don't actually need to do any of the things that it tells you you need to do when you check that website. So most of the stuff that is on that website is only pertaining to people leaving the US going to Europe. So once you're in Europe, in the EU, that's all thrown out the window. So basically what you just need to travel throughout the EU is nothing. So I spent about 150 euros on COVID tests in Europe because what's out there, the information out there is not very clear. And I was very scared of getting like stopped at an airport saying you can't enter our country or whatever, because I'm not a European citizen, part of the EU. I'm from the US. But flying throughout the EU has always been more of like a domestic flight situation, like in the US. So if you're flying throughout the EU, you're flying into parts of the airport where you don't have to go through immigration. And not having to go through immigration, they don't actually check anything. And here's the funny thing. Even when I flew to France, the only time anybody checked my vaccination card was at the check-in counter in LAX. They checked it. That was the first and last time it was checked on my entire trip. So after I got to France, into Charles de Gaulle Airport, nothing. They stamped my passport and they let me go. They didn't do anything. They didn't check anything. Honestly, nothing about COVID was ever even checked. There was a whole form that you had to fill out that they told you to fill out on Delta's website. And honestly, they didn't even take that. So, God, these travel restrictions, they're so not up to date, or maybe the immigration was lazy, I'm not sure, but definitely no one checked anything. So you just need a COVID vaccination to get your baggage checked in and your boarding pass. And once you're done with that, and through security, through immigration, on your plane into Europe, it's never checked again until you come back to the US. So getting into Europe, you need to be vaccinated. So you're not going to be going there without a vaccination anyways. But to come back, you do need to get a test within 72 hours of your flight, of taking off, departing. So it can be pretty much any of the COVID tests, but it needs to be a test. So you need to pay, because in Europe, tourists do not get free tests anymore. So depending on where you are, it's going to be more expensive. Amsterdam was super expensive, like 60 euros per person. While Italy, they have rules against price gouging for the tests, so it's actually fairly cheap, like 15 euros. So try to take it in Italy, try to exit from Italy, I guess it's cheaper. But yeah, it was quite the experience. So if you're flying back to the US, you do need to get a test done. Here is my biggest tip for you. Right now, France will give anybody a health pass if they have a vaccination card, have been vaccinated for COVID-19. So you just need to apply on the French COVID health pass website. Okay, so when I was filming the last video that told you about the health pass for France, that's actually changed again. So actually you do have a new method to get the health pass in France, which is actually going to the pharmacy in France. You actually have to be in France to get the health pass now. So you go to France, you go to a pharmacy from this map, and you go with your passport, and you go with your COVID vaccine card, and they will give you a health pass. And it's pretty simple, I've heard. I didn't have to do that before. It was an online method. You go online, you do all this, just to fill out all this information, and they send you one within 48 hours. Now it's not like that. So yeah, it's different. But let's go back to this video. It's pretty convenient because this pass, as far as I know, lasts forever. It lasted my whole 2 weeks there, even longer. About 15 days, 15, 16 days, it lasted that long. So I did not need to get a new health pass. So if you fly into Italy, first of all, flying into Italy, you're required to have a COVID test. Flying into France, you do not need a COVID test. So it's actually easier to fly into France anyways. Flying into Italy, you need a COVID test, and I'm pretty sure they will check it at LAX or whatever your airport is. They're going to check it before you fly off the to Europe, so to Italy. So you do need to check the restrictions going there. If you're, whatever your entry country is, you need to make sure that you have all the stuff, even though some of the paperwork no one ever checks. They never checked my, like the tracking forms for Italy. They never checked any of that once I came from France. So as far as I know, once you finish all of the entry country paperwork and everything, you're pretty much good to go. And sometimes that paperwork won't even be used. Now, in Italy, when you get a COVID test done, they give you a health pass, a QR code, just like the French one, that lasts for 3 days. So you can dine in at restaurants and stuff like that. It's a very short 3 days, so you only can use it for that time period and then it's expired. So my recommendation is if you can go into France for a little bit, I would recommend doing that so you can get the health pass from France, which is a much more useful pass, and then you can go out throughout Europe and do your whole trip, and you don't have to worry about the health pass ever again. Now, I'm not going to say that you don't need to get COVID tests to go into other countries. I only went from France to Italy to Amsterdam to the Netherlands, so they didn't check, and I'm pretty sure that no one will check as long as you're flying within the EU. But your experiences may vary, especially with how times change and rules getting more strict and stuff like that. But I feel as if you're flying within the EU, you should be safe from getting COVID tests. You don't need to pay all the extra money. But for me, I felt safer doing it anyways, just in case something happened. They pulled me to the side and said, "Do you get a COVID test or whatever?" I don't know. The rules are very all over the place. They're kind of hard to understand. But if, from my understanding, is all you need is to be vaccinated and you can go into those countries, no problem. Okay, so to get a COVID test in these countries, it's fairly simple. For France and Italy, you can get them at the pharmacies. So you just go to a pharmacy. In France particularly, there's more availability. So you can go to pretty much any pharmacy and they will do a test for you. You can do a rapid antigen test. PCR tests are a little bit harder to go by. I think you have to go to an actual lab to get that done, but an antigen test you can get done at any pharmacy. Italy's the same thing, but less pharmacies do it now. So you're going to have a little bit harder time finding it. And then for some reason, I've gotten quite a bit of attitude from the people that, the places that could do it. And when we did finally get it done, we still kind of got a little bit of attitude. So I'm not sure if that's just a culture thing or a translation thing, but it felt like there was attitude there. I'm not sure. But it did feel like there was something about not wanting to give us a test. Then when we got to Amsterdam, that's the worst place. Honestly, if you need to get a test in Amsterdam, it's the worst thing ever. It's so expensive and they don't do tests everywhere. There's tests at some travel places, and then some other facilities, they do tests, but it's not as widely available as France and Italy. So in the Netherlands or Amsterdam in particular, it's a little bit harder. So try not to get it done in Amsterdam because it's going to be very expensive and you're just not going to have a good time doing it because you're going to have to try to find it, which, yeah, it's not fun. So lastly, here's going to be my breakdown of going on this trip. If you're trying to go to the EU during this time, it's that you do need to be vaccinated. Pretty much all the countries in the EU just requires you to be vaccinated. So if you're not vaccinated, I don't know what the rules are for unvaccinated people. I just don't think any of them can go, but maybe there's if you really, really, really need to go for some reason, maybe there's some documents or something that you can have that would allow you to get in. But from my understanding is you need to be vaccinated, and it needs to be 14 days after your second shot. Second thing is health passes are very important. Dining in, you're not going to be able to go in anywhere without a health pass. So you need to get your health pass. If that's in Italy, it's going to be 3 days. If it's for France, you can get it done and it's forever. So pick you want to go, France. But yes, they are very, very strict about where you can dine in and how you can dine in, or what you can do inside. So if you're going inside somewhere, not your hotels didn't really check, but if you're dining in somewhere, if you're doing some indoor activity, they are going to check a health pass. If you don't have it, they won't let you in. You can dine outside, but it's kind of cold right now. It's getting cold. So get your health pass. And then COVID tests are quite expensive, so just be ready for that. They do take credit cards. It's just not cheap. So going on this trip, that's an extra expense you're going to be spending. And if you were like me and you wanted to be a little bit more cautious, then you're going to be spending a lot more money. If you're going to take the risk of not doing it between the countries, which I think is okay, but don't quote me on that, then you might save a little bit of money, but you still need to get one on the way back because that is required. One last thing. So for public transportation inside of Europe, particularly for trains, so if you're trying to go from like one city to another with a train, in France, we took the high-speed train and they did not check the health pass, so it was not checked for that trip, but for Italy, it was checked. I'm not sure if it's supposed to be checked for France. They just didn't check it that one time, or the 2 times I went back and forth between Paris and another city, and Burgundy, or Dijon. So I went back and forth and they did not check the health pass, but I'm not sure if that's just a one-off and they actually do check it. But in Italy, I did get checked from Florence to Milan. They did check our health passes. So be ready to have your health pass, because sometimes you just won't be able to take transportation if you don't have it. So that's something that you need to be aware of too. So if you're planning a trip by train, just be ready to have a health pass as well. Okay guys, that's gonna be it for today's episode. Next time, we're going to be talking about some of the hotels I went to, the airline seats I got, and all the other cool stuff that is like just my trip in general. But I hope this video was very informative to you guys, and hopefully you guys can use it to make your trip, prepare your trip to go to Europe. So thanks guys for watching. Stay positive, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.